I talk a lot about anti-aging for men, how men's looks change as they age, how you should age as gracefully as possible. I am 50. And we've never really talked about women, when women age, because I got a lot of questions about this. So in this video, I'm going to address how women age, because I've done a lot of unscientific research and some scientific research into this topic. It's actually a very interesting topic. It's something that I like thinking about and discussing and analyzing, even though I haven't really spoken about this publicly. But now we're going to talk about this. I will tell you a quick story. A few years back, I received a friend request from a woman on my personal Facebook page. And I looked at her picture and I looked at her name and I had no idea who she was. I'm like, who is this? This is strange. Name didn't ring a bell. The picture didn't look like anyone I knew. She looked like an old mom. And I was kind of confused. So I poked around and I saw that we went to high school together. She wasn't in my class, but she went to the same time that I went to high school with because she was mutual friends with some other people I went to high school with. I said, oh, okay, we must have gone to high school together, maybe. But I still had no idea who she was. So I brought up her picture, I zoomed it up, and I looked at it, and I focused on her face. I'm like, is that someone I used to know? No, I have no idea who this person was. So I brought up her picture, and I zoomed in on the picture and looked at her face very carefully, and I said, is this someone I knew in high school? And I kept looking at it. I said, no, this person doesn't look like anyone I recognize at all. And for some reason, the curiosity got the better of me and I started poking around. And I don't remember how I figured this out because this is a year or two ago. But I finally determined that she was a particular girl I knew in high school who was one grade above me. And this woman in high school, this girl, was not only smoking hot, but really hot. I mean, this chick was gorgeous in high school. And I went to high school in the 80s. I'm a very old man. This chick was amazingly good looking. And I went back and looked at her picture and I'm like, I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell it was her. She was fat. Her teeth were all fucked up. Her eyes, the way her eyes hung on her face looked weird. Her hair was completely different and stringy. She was dressed in like this mama muumuu. She looked awful. And I don't say that to be mean. It's just an objective viewpoint. She looked terrible. And she looked so bad, she didn't look anything like she used to look in high school. And this was not some old lady. She was in her 40s, maybe 45 years old, 46 years old at the time. Not old at all. And that's when I started down this rabbit hole of not only how men age, because I've always looked at men my age and made comparisons, but how women age when they get older. And so I started looking at a lot of women I went to high school with, women who were in their 40s, 50s, 60s. I didn't go to high school with people in their 60s, but you get my point. Other women I knew too. Other women I have met. And I started kind of thinking through the women I've known or met, worked with in many cases, who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and coming up with categories and scenarios under which certain women age and certain women look good as they age, and some women look terrible as they age, and how the aging looks different from men as women get older than when men get older. Whether or not genetics is a factor versus Botox and plastic surgery is a factor, or both. And to be clear, and I've said this many times, I like older women. I talk about VYW, type 2s, younger women who prefer older men. I was the male version of a VYW when I was a young man. When I was in high school, I spent most of my time looking at my 35-year-old, 40-year-old teachers than I did the flat-chested cheerleader who sat in the front of the room. I was busy checking out my algebra teacher with the big ass and the big boobies. I was all over that. And my fantasies were about fucking my teachers, not the cute, short little girl with, the A-cup boobs that most guys were interested in. Matter of fact, the few women I was attracted to in high school were the women who were much more womanly in their body structures. And this is the 80s, back when women did not mature physically as fast as they do now with all the hormones, the milk and crap like that. But the women I liked, the girls I liked, I should say, in high school, when I was in high school, was like, the stoner chick in the back of the room with the long blonde hair and the big tits and the big ass. That was the one I was checking out because I liked the older woman look. And many of you know, I lost my virginity to a woman who was in her 40s who was married.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
I lost my virginity when I was in my early 20s. It took me that long to lose it. And I had a great time. And as a matter of fact, a few years back, when I was in my, late 30s, I had sex with a woman who was 55. That's the oldest woman I've had sex with so far. But she was hot. She was cute. She was physically fit. She had great skin. She looked really good. She had some wrinkles, a little bit on her eyes and maybe one or two on her neck, but I didn't care. And here's a funny story from that encounter. This was, 10 plus years ago, but she would leave her shirt on during sex. And I said, hey, look, I got to see what you got. And she goes, oh no, I don't want to show you my boobs. You have sex with all these younger women and you'll compare me and I'm 55 and I'm old and I'm embarrassed and da-da-da. And I had to convince her. So finally I said this. I said, all right, look, make you a deal. I'm just going to take your shirt off, pull your shirt up. I'm going to take your bra down. I'm going to look at your boobs. If I have any problem with them, I will just put your bra back up, put your shirt back on, and we will immediately have sex. It will not change my opinion about you at all. It will not make me less attracted to you. By the way, that is true. I don't lie. Many women I've had sex with had flat chests. That's a big turnoff for me. And I just have them leave their shirt on so that way it doesn't bother me. So same deal there. And she did not have a flat chest. She had boobs. And she was very nervous. So finally she let me do it. She pulled up her shirt. I pulled down the bra and her tits were great. They weren't amazing. They weren't perfect. My wife's tits are perfect. But her tits were really, really good. And I'm like, hallelujah, these are great. What were you worried about? Crazy? This is a 55-year-old woman. She was very pretty, had a great body, all those things. So women can certainly age and look really good. I am not in the red pill camp that says as soon as a woman turns 30 or as soon as a woman is somewhere in her 30s, her ovaries dry up and now she's gross because now she can't have babies. And why would you have sex with a woman who's over 30? I've done some videos about that in the past. So no, older women can be really attractive, just like younger women can be really attractive. I don't differentiate based on age outside of the over 33 thing that I have to pay attention to, but that's not because of women not looking as good over 33. That's because their ASD spikes at over 33. Topic for another time. Before I get into the categories of women, how they age, I do several videos a week here on how to develop long-term masculine freedom, long-term masculine happiness, dating multiple women, location-dependent income, testosterone, all those good things. If that is of interest to you, you should subscribe to this channel, leave a like on this video, click the notification bell, and leave a comment on this video. It doesn't really matter what you say, and that way you'll get this content for free. So based on my scientific and unscientific research, I have come up with 3 categories in terms of women who are attractive when they are younger as they age. So not talking about every woman getting older. I'm talking about women who are hot when they are 18, 19, 25, what have you, 16, whatever, okay? They're hot when they're that age. And as they get older, how do they maintain their hotness or do they? There's 3 categories of these women. First category, biggest one by far, is women who age like shit. They completely let their looks go. They get fat. They fuck up their skin. They fuck up their hair. They fuck up their teeth. They fuck up their fashion. They fuck up their health in many cases. They look like garbage. Sometimes you can tell it's the same woman. Sometimes the case of the woman I just mentioned earlier, it's so bad you can't even tell it's the same person. Matter of fact, here's another quick example of that. Many years ago in my first marriage, so we're going back, 20, 25 years ago now, I visited my wife's mom's apartment. My wife's mom, my mother-in-law at the time, she's passed away since then, was an old lady. This cranky old lady with this eye and wrinkles and, disgusting hair. Talked like that, like a classic old lady. And she had all these photos on the wall from various eras. It was pretty neat, actually. And there was this picture of this woman that was clearly a very old photo, many decades old. This woman was probably 20 years old, and she was gorgeous. She was beautiful. And I said, whoa, who's that? And my mother-in-law at the time, the old lady walks over, she goes, that's me. I'm like, Jesus Christ. That was her when she was 19. She was gorgeous. And today she looked like that. So that's the first category. Now, what is the number one reason that attractive women become unattractive? Number one reason, top of the list, getting married, or I should say settling down with a man and having kids. That is the number one. Now, there are many other reasons. I'll cover those in a second. But the number one reason that I've seen, at least anecdotally, but I have a lot of anecdotal data, is the reason that attractive women end up looking ugly is because they have kids. They shut off that part of their being in terms of being an attractive woman, a sexual creature, what have you, and they focus on their kids, and they get fatter and fatter and fatter, and they cut their hair gets shorter and shorter. If they were blonde, the hair gets browner and browner. I've seen this transformation and transition with many, 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 many women over time, and that's what happens. One of the reasons that my wife, Pink Firefly, is really good looking and is a size 0, even though she's 42 years old, is because she's never had any children, and she didn't get married until she was 38. There you go. That's it. So, and I know that makes a lot of right-wing traditional conservative people very angry. She's supposed to have kids. But the reality is my wife is better looking than the vast majority of women her age who had babies. So that's a fact. Whether or not that pisses you off, that is the strongest factor. Another factor that I have found, and I've discussed this on my blogs many times, is women who are young in their 20s who get fat. So attractive women who are really hot, really good looking when they're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and then you meet them 7 years later, they're in their late 20s and they're fat. Not they've gained some weight. Let me be clear about that one. If a really attractive woman gains some weight, in many respects, sometimes she looks better. Her ass gets a little bigger, her boobs get a little bigger, but the rest of the body is about the same. So sometimes that's a good thing. I'm not talking about they gain some weight. I'm saying they get fat. And I dated many FBs and MLTRs back in the day who were really good looking when I dated them. And then 5 years later, 4 years later, sometimes 3 years later, sometimes 6 or 7 years later, I see them again or I see them on social media and they're fat. They're huge. They still have the same face, but their bodies are just gigantic. What did you do? And they didn't have any kids and they didn't marry anybody. They just got fucking lazy. As I've discussed before, many young, good-looking women don't take care of their health. They're young and good-looking and hot, so they figure they can eat whatever they want and never exercise, and then they do, and for a while they remain hot. They keep smoking weed, eating a bunch of pizza, and they're still hot for a while, but after 3, 4, 5 years of that, they balloon to these giant fat chicks, and they look terrible. So that's the other reason why a lot of women lose it as they get older. It's not because they have kids and get married, it's because they just get lazy and complacent, and they get fat. I did an Alpha Male 2.0 podcast a while back how there's two different types of overweight people. There are people who are overweight because they've been overweight their whole lives since they were little kids. They have really shitty genetics. They had shitty parents, what have you, and they just had a natural proclivity for that, and they love eating food, and so they fight their weight their entire lives. I'm in that category. But there's another category of fat people who used to be skinny. They're perfectly fine. They were perfectly physically fit. They look great, men and women both. And at some point, usually in their 20s, they just get lazy and complacent and they just start eating whatever they want. And 5 years later, 10 years later, they're fat asses. And so a lot of women fall into that category as well. And it's not just getting older. A lot of these women hit this point by the time they're 30, 31, 29. It's amazing. I've seen this happen many times. Now, the second category of attractive women as they age, I've seen this happen quite a bit, are women who stay hot into their older years until a certain point and suddenly they just fall off. A lot of Asian women are in that category. The Asian trope is that Asian women age beautifully, which they do, well into their 40s and 50s. So you'll have like an Asian woman who's like 43 and she almost looks like she's 20, both in her face and her body because they age great. And that's true. But then they reach this point suddenly like in their late 50s, early 60s, where they suddenly fall off a cliff and turn into hags. I'm not saying that's accurate. I'm saying that's the stereotype. And I've seen that happen to a lot of Asian women, but I've seen that happen with a lot of white women, non-Asian women too, where they remain really hot. So if they're hot when they're in high school, they're hot in their 20s, well into their 30s, they're hot, their 40s, they're hot. But then they reach this point all of a sudden where within just a few years, their looks just drop off a cliff for whatever reason. Pink Firefly and I know a woman. We met her when she was 50. And she was beautiful. She was really good looking. She was half white, half Hispanic, really attractive. And we saw her again about 2 years later. And she was ugly. She just completely let her looks go within 2 years. Something happened to her. And we were trying to speculate, is it because she started smoking cigarettes? Did she get depressed? Did she start drinking? Did she just let her diet go? And usually it's not even the diet because they don't get fat. They just suddenly start to look bad all of a sudden. It's not a slow progression like it is for most people. And I don't have any data on why this happens with these women. It usually happens between the age of 38 and 50, often their 40s, where they look great. When they're 43, they're gorgeous. And by the time you see them, they're 45, they don't look good anymore. All of a sudden, out of the blue, when the past 15 years as an older woman over 30, they look great. So I've seen that occur. I don't know why that is. My guess is it's some kind of lifestyle change, some kind of mental change, something they're going through. Maybe they just get tired of all the time and effort it takes to look good. I've certainly seen women run into that, especially pretty girls. It takes a lot of time and effort to do yourself up in the morning. When I get ready in the morning, it takes me 20 minutes. When my wife, Pink Firefly, gets ready, it takes her 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours every morning. My God. because she's pretty, so she has to, maintain that look. The third category are the women who are hot and stay hot. They just stay hot forever. Some of this is genetics. So the woman I mentioned earlier, the woman who was 55 with the nice boobies, most of that, to be honest, was her genetics. She was exercising and watching what she ate a little bit, but I'll be honest with you, most of the fact that she looked pretty and had nice tits, because she had good genetics. Okay, my wife has some really good genetics. So a lot of this is genetic based. And I'm talking here specifically about how women get older. Their 30s, they're still hot. Their 40s, they're still hot. They're still skinny. They look young. They might have a wrinkle or two. Not a big deal. Their hair still looks good. Their skin looks good. They still dress nice. They take care of how they look. Their eyes look good, all those things. And as they get in their 50s, they're still good looking. Now you can see they're getting older. You can see those wrinkles in their neck and little wrinkles around the eyes that the Botox can't quite get, but they're still very attractive. I have linked to several photos and videos on my blogs and other content in the past where I've shown some celebrity examples of women who are like not only hot for their age, but still really hot. My ultimate example of this was Raquel Welch in her early 70s. There is a video on YouTube, you can find it, where Raquel Welch is being interviewed by Piers Morgan in front of a big audience. And she was like 72 years old, and she's hot. Not hot for her age, just hot. And I've spoken about her before, where when I was in high school and she was in her mid 40s, I had no idea who she was because I'm Gen X and Raquel Welch was not part of my generation. But she walks out on stage and it was like the Academy Awards or something. And I went, whoa, who's that? And my dad, who knew exactly who she was like, that's Raquel Welch. I'm like, damn. I was like 13. She was probably in her late 40s. I'm like, I wanted to hit that shit. Another one is Christy Brinkley. Christy Brinkley was like 60, 61 years old. Holy crap. Gorgeous as hell. Now, of course, you'll say, well, Caleb, those are celebrities. Yes, but I have personally known non-celebrity, non-wealthy older women who look really goddamn good. I remember years ago, I had a massage therapist, used to go in for massages once a month, and she was in her early 50s. And I asked her one day how old she was. I figured she was like 38, 37. She goes, I'm 54. I'm like, what? You're 54? She's like, yeah. She was a little surprised. Like, what the hell? She looked young as fuck. Now, that'd be a case of someone who is doing everything right, taking vitamins, taking care of her skin, sunblock, doing all the things necessary, a lot of things we talk about here at Alpha Male 2.0. But there are indeed plenty of women out there who are hot well into their 40s and 50s, and in some rare cases, 60s. And as I've said, the human race is getting younger every year. Every decade, the human race gets younger. So in a decade or two, you're going to have women in their 60s who are hot. Not hot for 60. Oh, she looks good for 60. No. Hot. In our lifetimes, most likely, this is a few decades down the road, but this will happen in our lifetimes. You will be able to go to the doctor and he will say to you, what age do you want to look? And you will give him a number and he'll go whoop wobbity doo, and you will look that age. So you'll have a whole bunch of women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s who look like they're 25. And a whole bunch of men who probably look, 35. I've said before, my ideal age in terms of physical appearance would be 37. I think men optimize their appearance at 37. That's my opinion. But it'll be like that movie In Time with Justin Timberlake. Stupid movie. Don't recommend it. Don't watch it. But that movie where everyone in the world is 25 years old. Everyone looks 25 because of medical technology or what have you. Everyone stops as you get 25. So there's a scene where the guy walks in and there's these three hot 25-year-old girls. And he says, this is my daughter, this is my wife, and this is my mom. And they're all the same age. That will occur, or some variation of that will occur in our lifetimes. So just wait. A lot of shit's coming that people are not prepared for. What I have found very interesting is a lot of these women who age well will still marry men who look their age. For example, there's a woman I went to high school with just recently who is one of these still hot. She is 50 years old. She looks goddamn good. You can tell she's a little older, but she's very attractive, very pretty. And she just married a guy who was also around her age. I think it's like 52. A guy I don't know. And in the pictures together, these little cute little pictures together they have on Facebook, he looks like her dad. He's old. He looks old. He looks old. He's fat. I mean, he's chubby at least. He has wrinkles. He's got that horrible red skin because he's been out in the sun too long. He's bald with a little comb over. He's got gray hair in his face, a big gray goatee. He looks old and she looks young, even though they're the same age. It's kind of hilarious. Lastly, why do women age worse than men? Because even women will agree, men tend to age better than women, and that is true. That's certainly based on my research and my anecdotal experience. Men tend to age better than women, all other factors remaining equal. Why is that? I will give you several reasons. Some of these are scientific, and some of these are my guesses, but I think I'm right. The first one right off the top of the list is stress. Men stress a lot, especially these days, but women stress more than men. And nothing will age you like stress because that creates cortisol, which is basically going to age the fuck out of you. Women stress about shit all the goddamn time. And if you stress nonstop every day for 20 years, you're going to end up looking a lot older. Men are much more simple than women, and so they tend to stress a little less. Men do stress, but not like women. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, kids. Having kids will age your ass unless you're a wealthy multi-billionaire and you can afford all the procedures and you have a personal trainer and all that stuff. If you're a normal everyday woman, having kids will age you. Trust me, if you have a woman who has 2 or 3 kids and another woman with near identical genetics who never has kids, this woman's going to age a lot better in her 40s and 50s than this woman by far across the board, all their factors remaining equal. Just the way it goes. Next one, and there is some scientific data behind this, lack of protein. Men tend to eat more protein than women. Protein is good for your skin and various other things. And so women, the guy will eat a steak and the girl's eating a salad, right? So when women don't eat enough protein, they tend to age worse, and men tend to age a little better because they lean toward more higher protein foods. Another one, and this is not scientific, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, is lack of sleep. I have massive anecdotal experience of talking to thousands of people, men and women both, about sleep, about that topic, because I ask a lot of people about that topic. And across the board, I am constantly hearing from women that they can't sleep, they don't sleep, they stay up late, they toss and turn all night, they wake up 14 times a night, they get up super early, they just can't fuck. I hear it over and over and over and over and over again from women of all ages, 20s, 30s, 40s. They just can't sleep. Now, there are a lot of men, certainly, that have sleep issues too, but not like women. It's night and day. And if you don't get enough sleep, you're gonna age and look like shit. One of the reasons I look young for my age is I get plenty of sleep. I'm in bed 8.5 hours every night. End of story, no matter what. Rarely is there an exception. And I sleep like a baby. I know that for a fact because this Oura Ring tells me, and I check it every morning, how my sleep is doing. My sleep is absolutely optimized. I have amazing sleep every night. My poor wife will toss and turn all night because she's the typical girl who can't sleep. So that's another reason. So that's the bottom line on why and how women age. If you want detailed advice on how to date women of different age ranges, you should watch this video where I cover all the age ranges, and I'll see you in that video. Bye.